newest survivor in IDV is as interesting as she is complex. With 3 big abilities, she covers a pretty wide range of playstyles and capabilities. This guide should tell and show you everything you need to know about how Wendy Foot works. Jumping in immediately to look at her abilities, her first trait is Meteorological Experiment. This is the main bread and butter of Wendy's kit and comprises those 3 big abilities I mentioned. Wendy carries a storm glass that allows her to manipulate the weather around her, summoning winds, clouds, or rain. She can shake the storm glass to trigger chemical reactions that create various weather catalysts. When tapping the ability, you can draw horizontal, vertical, or circular lines in the designated area, each generating a different catalyst for wind, clouds, or rain. The shape and characteristics of the lines affects the magnitude and potency of the catalyst. Tapping the ability again will unleash the catalyst effect. This is where it gets complicated. Wendy's 3 abilities have to be drawn out in specific ways to have specific effects and potencies. Now don't get overwhelmed by this. The way you draw each catalyst is actually very easy. Looking at each of these abilities in depth, first there's Gale. This is your primary chase catalyst you want to use, but can also be used if you want to play a more assist role as Wendy, directly helping in chases. Draw a horizontal line to create a Gale catalyst. When a hunter comes into contact with a Gale, they are continuously pushed away by strong winds. The width of the line affects the magnitude and durability of the Gale, while the height of the line's fluctuations influences its speed, and the number of bends in the line determines the duration of the pushback. Let's look at the combinations we can make with this. First off, this is your absolute lowest potency Gale you can do. And this is your highest potency Gale you can do. When looking at the description of this ability, it mentions 3 major components: the width, the height, and the amount of bends. This might sound complicated, but trust me, it isn't. Looking at this grid again, you have the width and the height. The higher the line is, the faster your Gale travels. The wider the line is, the bigger and more durable it is. And lastly, each time the line bends adds to the duration. The absolute biggest thing to remember always is your resource. You don't want to use 2 full potency Gales and end up using your entire ability. Oftentimes, lower potency Gales work perfectly fine in chases. Save higher ones in critical moments to save yourself or a teammate. Next is Stratus. This is also a chase ability, but it has a more niche use compared to Gale. Draw a vertical line to create a Stratus catalyst. This cloud lifts Wendy off the ground, granting her temporary flight. The height of the line determines the lift height and durability of the Stratus, while the width of the line's fluctuations influences the flying speed, and the number of bends in the line affects its duration. Just like Gale, let's look at the combinations you can make. First, this is your absolute lowest potency cloud you can make. And this is your highest potency cloud you can make. Again, this ability uses the same width, height, and bend concept as Gale does. The higher the line, the higher the cloud will lift you, and the more durability the cloud gets. The width of the line dictates its flying speed, and the total number of bends affects its duration. A very big thing to remember here is that Stratus will always have a higher resource cost over Gale. So while flying around on a cloud is fun, it's best to use this more sparingly. Your clouds are going to be best used to try and break chase and make distance. If you can make enough distance by scaling a building on Chinatown, for example, the hunter loses a lot of distance and might even give up chasing you. This ability is more niche because on maps like Arms Factory and Red Church, aka maps that don't have a quote-unquote second story, it's essentially useless for tricks like this, and while it could be used to go over walls and certain looping spots, those tend to require higher potency clouds, which might not be as viable compared to a lower potency Gale, for example. A very interesting and potentially game-deciding trick is using the lowest possible potency cloud to fly through windows or dropped pallets. Lastly, there's Rainfall. This is pretty much purely an assist ability, and a very strong one at that, as long as it's used in the correct situations. Draw a circle to create a rainfall catalyst. A rain cloud appears within a specified area with a radius of 32 meters. One of the survivors within the area will gain up to 8 composure per second. Once a survivor reaches 100 composure, their fear is reduced by half. After leaving this rainfall for 3 seconds, composure decreases at a rate of 15 per second. The rate at which composure increases is influenced by the number of circles drawn, while the average area of these circles determines the rainfall's moving speed. The meteorologist has a natural affinity for rain, gaining 6 composure per second while she is within the rainfall instead of the typical 8. This ability really only should be used in certain playstyles of Wendy. Since it takes longer for her to heal herself, using it instead to heal teammates is generally a better option. That being said, it makes Wendy very strong in certain situations. If everyone is injured, you can all group heal and make healing a lot faster. An important thing to note is that casting Rainfall will always cost 40% of your resource meter, meaning if you go a full support type playstyle on Wendy, you can only use 2 total Rainfalls in one match. Wendy's second trait is Reversible Reaction. This ties completely into Wendy's main ability and is very simple and short. The volatile chemicals within the storm glass cause the catalyst to revert to its original form after 30 seconds. The meteorologist can also shake the storm glass to decompose the catalyst. Essentially, this says that your catalyst will be refunded if you either don't use it in 30 seconds, or if you manually refund it. Wendy's last trait is a pretty important factor when deciding if you want to play her. It's called Environmental Awareness. The meteorologist is keenly attuned to her surroundings, allowing her to detect injured companions within 36 meters. If the meteorologist is the last remaining survivor, she will continuously sense the location of the dungeon. The first half of this trait helps Wendy's healer assist playstyle quite a bit, but the last half makes her an incredible option for people playing solo. Being able to see the dungeon as the last survivor helps her so much in securing an escape, especially if you have enough resources to use a cloud, for example. Let's talk about Wendy's playstyles because she covers nearly all of the roles. Obviously, kiting as Wendy is her primary playstyle. Nearly her entire kit revolves around abilities used in kiting. With her Gale and even her cloud, your kite can be very solid. Is she a 5-cipher kite survivor? With her kit, I would argue no, since she can lose her main ability pretty quick. That being said, if you're a kiting legend, you can 5-cipher kite with nearly every character in the game. Wendy actually has 2 separate assist playstyles she can do. You can either play a more hands-on assist, helping out teammates in chase, think characters like cheerleader, cowboy, and batter, all characters who require to be with their teammate in chase to assist them. This playstyle is generally pretty simple. Use Gale at the right times to help your team make distance, stop them from getting hit, or even push the hunter into a pallet for a stun. You can also push the hunter into the tram on Eversleeping Town. Wendy's second assist playstyle is based purely around healing. Think characters like Barmaid or Psychologist, using their abilities to heal their teammates. While this isn't the best playstyle for her in my opinion, in a coordinated team, it can really be the deciding factor on whether it's a win or a loss. Her last playstyle is Rescue, and while I don't think this will end up being her most viable either, it still works. Using Gale either before or after a rescue can secure a safe rescue if you execute it right. And also, Tide is a great perk to run on Wendy, especially if you play her as a rescue. That's all for this guide. The rest of the video is a compilation of different cloud spots you can do on different maps. I'd like to thank my Discord server for pitching in and testing Wendy to find some of these different spots. I plan on doing these guides for future characters and likely for already existing ones too. If you'd like to help out with any future character guides, you can join the Discord. Thanks very much for watching. I hope this guide helped you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video.